In this video, we are once again strolling through the comic book graveyard at midnight in search of eerie, spooky, and maybe even gross comic books from the pre-code era. A time in the history of comics where concerned parents, party-pooping psychologists, and book burnings were all trying to take the fun out of comic books. Join myself, Swagglehaus, and Ryan from Automatic Comics as we dive back into the source of all juvenile delinquency, nightmare, and poor life choices, pre-code horror comic books. Here are 3 undervalued books we've selected from some of the most iconic creators of the time. Keep watching, if you dare. So let's hop in. I'm going to talk about my first underrated book. And of course, I'm back on Al Feldstein. And one thing you may know about me, if you just kind of watch some of the things I talk about and things I lean in on when I talk about pre-code horror, I love classic monsters, vampires, werewolves, mummies. So this is one of my favorite EC covers. It's not my favorite mummy cover. Johnny Craig got that one. I already kind of mentioned that book earlier when we were talking about Swag's Johnny Craig stuff. But this Haunt of Fear #4 is just beautiful. I love it. It feels like it fell out of a Universal Monsters movie to me. And I mean, I don't know where else to go from here. Just everything works, from the guy carrying the lantern, the mummy. Again,
I love the arms out. It's like it's
yeah, yeah. You just have this great perspective, and the shadow behind the mummy just gives you some depth on it. It's just fantastic, and it's another one of those clean horror covers, right? Like, yeah, it's obviously a reanimated corpse, but you know, it's not like the bandages are all gory or anything like that. It's still very tastefully done, and this book's actually notable in the fact that it's the first renumbered issue of Haunt of Fear. So the first 3 issues of Haunt of Fear were 15, 16, and 17. Old EC trick had saved them money on shipping, I believe it was, through the post office, and eventually they had to change it to where it's now actually Haunt of Fear, and it started as #4 with the redone numbering.
I hate the EC numbering. It's so
dude.
When you first get into pre-code horror, or this type of stuff, whether it's the sci-fi books, like Weird Science is the same.
Yep.
You know,
Yes,
if you are like looking books up, like if you're watching like a claim sale and trying to do stuff quick live and you're looking stuff up online, you got to make sure you get the year, because it's like it'll be 1951 or 1954, something like that, and then you can maybe pay too much for something that you think you're getting a good deal on.
Yeah, and where the wrong book shows up, you're like, wait, that's not what I thought I was buying. But no, this is definitely a problem. It's something that's taken me a long time to kind of get my head around, but now I'm kind of there, which I'm appreciative of. And it's just, even when I was looking up GPA sales for some of the other books I'm going to talk about, they actually double stat. They show them on the same page. So it's like, there's only an option for 12, right? It's just, there's 12 #1, there's 12 #2, which is pretty wild. This book, and I can attest to this, it doesn't trade hands a lot. It's one I actually still need, which makes me sad, but there's only been 3 sales of this over the last 12 months. Most recently, last month in September, a 1.5 sold for 301 or 7. I hate this font. I can never tell 1s and 7s apart. So inside baseball here, I chose the font, so it's my own fault. But that makes me angry, because I 100% would have paid that for a copy of this book.
Totally. Like, that makes me angry too. Cause I mean, depending on what the 1.5 looked like, I mean, if it was like generally okay, like I think that is such a good entry point, into this.
Yes.
Like you said, like, it's just such a classic, Feldstein had a lot of like, just that very, very classic, fun horror style in terms of his covers and stuff. And another cool little thing about this, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty certain this is the case, but this is the first EC cover that had the 3 bubbles like this of the 3 narrators. There's another book I'm going to talk about the whole bubble thing, but I'm fairly certain that this is the first time they did that trade style. So that's kind of a cool thing if you're into that.
It's early enough that definitely fits, because in the preceding issue, they're all three coming out of like hallways, right?
Yeah. They're part of the cover itself.
Yeah, exactly.
But this one, they're in the bubbles.
Which I have a copy at CGC right now. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Very nice. But yeah, I think there was a Vault of Horror where just the Vault Keeper and the Crypt Keeper were on there. So yeah, that's a good point. I probably should have put that down. So Ryan, what's your top line thought when you see this gorgeous Al Feldstein cover?
For me, it's that I don't see a lot of mummy covers. You know, in the horror era, like, I mean, I watch a lot of sales, a lot of pre-code horror books, and I really don't see very many mummy covers. The one that always jumps out to me is Tales from the Crypt 33, which is the origin of the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah.
And so that one's a Jack Davis cover. I really like Jack Davis too. I like his detail that he puts into the covers. And, but yeah, you don't see mummies all that often. You see werewolves quite a bit. They'll show up a lot, and vampires sometimes, but I feel like mummies are the least used of them. So I think that's a cool little factor or element about this one, that if that's your favorite type of monster, you're trying to get those different monsters, then this is one of the ones that you would really have to go for.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely in the echelon of I don't know, Drew, if you have an opinion on this, but it does feel like, you got werewolf, vampire, Frankenstein are like your S tier. And then mummy always gets a little bit below that. And then you get like, I don't know, Creature from the Black Lagoon and things like that.
Yeah, just the amphibian or monster. Yeah. And then the sad thing is, that's your classic Universal monsters. You just throw skeletons and skulls. I mean, they're far and away, the most prominent.
Yeah. There's a skull on almost every.
Yeah. It's like if you're looking at getting into pre-code horror, you're like, what kind of pre-code horror should I get into, that is going to have value, or, what can I just, as a general rule, look at and assume something's going to be of decent value. Does it have a skull on it? You're probably going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's probably boiling it down a little far, but I feel like that'll hold some water.
And I'm going to talk about that some in one of my future picks. And it for me, I look at like which covers have multiple elements on them that people like.
Yeah.
Whether it's skulls, good girl art, the violence, that kind of stuff. And if you get multiples of those, it tends to mean that book is often going to be more desirable.
If you have 3 out of 3, that's where the money is. 2 out of 3 is pretty good. Even 1 out of 3,
For sure. And just the last thing I'll point out here before we hop over to your book, Swag. It's another instance where, you're only talking 10x between a 1.5 and a 9.0. So the value range is really pretty squashed on this. And that 9.0 sold in April for $3,000, which again, for a 1950 EC book seems pretty affordable to me. Ryan, what's your thoughts in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, that's always one of the things that I've noticed with, I feel like with Golden Age in general, is that you do often have relatively high, what I call them like baseline values, and so it's like, you'll see it with like World War II covers too, where it's like an Alex Schomburg book, and maybe a 6.0 sells for $4,000, but a 0.5 sells for $1,200. And it's just like a lot of times, like you just can't get below a certain point because it's so hard to get it anyway. People just want to have that book. But then once you start to get up to certain levels, you're competing with a lot of other things. And so that's when you really have to look at, like, at $3,000, what else is this competing with? I could get maybe like a 2.5 Crime Suspense 22. And maybe I would rather have that than this. And so that's where maybe sometimes you run into those types of issues where you do get that price compression. That price
it's
compression.
like the two things: getting in the club and then being the president of the club.
Yes.
Those are like the two most competitive things, right?
Yeah. And as much as I love this cover, I feel like the guy who would be spending $3,000 on a copy of this book is checking down the list. Like he's already got the nice copy of CSS 22. He's already got the Crime Patrol 15, and so on and so forth.
They're working on their pedigree collection.
Yeah.
Or he's on the CGC 4, or what's it called, where the the collections, or what is that called? We're all blanking on it.
Yeah, I've got some
registry. He's on the CGC registry, and he's like, I want the top of the registry.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's definitely a thing. Like people will pay up for certain books so that they can claim that top
status. You know, it's all status.
And really, if you've got the bankroll, any of these EC titles aren't bad to go for because they're only like 24, 26 issues a piece. That's not a ton of books to track down. I mean, they're all easy.
And they all have file copies.
Exactly.
You can always get some crazy high grade for these books.
For sure. And that's what I've always said. And one of the things I think that's been interesting is kind of my closing thought here is that ECs generally exist in two conditions, crap and file copies. And when you get into that mid category, that mid tier, your prices really jump up because it's a hyper competitive area because they just aren't that common. You can get low grades all day. You can get Gaines file copies fairly regular, but that mid-tier stuff can be harder to come by. All right. Swag. Talk about my guy, Johnny Craig.
Yeah. So, for underrated books, underrated Johnny Craig covers, I mean, it's kind of hard to find some underrated ones, but the one that kind of stood out to me, at least for this round of it, was Vault of Horror number 15 from 1950. And there's a few things that, I kind of feel like make this book really, really cool. I mean, one, subjectively, I think that the art is awesome. I think just having kind of the foreground element, the hands popping out, hands popping out of the ground has actually kind of been something that it would be repeated, even in this title later on. But it's kind of an aesthetic, I think, really is, evokes horror in a way. I think that this kind of cover has been swiped a few times, and kind of like what we talk about with the Feldstein stuff. I like that there's something really unsettling and horrific about it, but it's still kind of, again, it's always has that wink and that nod and that kind of fun feel. So I really like this. I like that it's 1950. I mean, I don't know if between 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, et cetera, if there's really too big of a difference in terms of how the values spread or whatever. I think, the covers command it mostly. But, when we're talking about like very, very early on in the run of Vault of Horror, I think that makes this book really, really cool. And like we mentioned with the last book, the Haunt of Fear is the first time you see the three of them there. Well, this cover is the first time that they had a bubble, like the bubble with the Vault Keeper in it, at least if I'm not mistaken. So if that is cool, to someone out there, that's definitely a factor. And I don't think that this would be the first Vault Keeper cover. I think that distinction belongs to the Haunt of Fear stuff. But but it is the first Vault Keeper bubble or first EC narrator bubble. So that's kind of cool. And then as far as underrated book, not that it's a cheap one, but in my opinion, I think if you can kind of find a pretty decent mid-grade copy under 4 figures, I mean, you could definitely say that that's underrated. There's only been 2 sales this calendar year, so hard to say what the exact floor price is, but it does feel like a book that you could, get in the club pretty, not easily, but I think it's very doable for a lot of people. So I don't know, Drew, what do you think, or Ryan, about this cover?
My first question is like, was the hands coming out of the ground, was that an EC original? Did they swipe that from somewhere? Is there any precedent for that in film before?
I wouldn't be surprised if there was a film. There would be some type of horror film that might have done that.
Yeah.
Well, I think even when we were talking about the very first book, Ryan, you mentioned like that the childhood fear of like the hand coming out of the grave and pulling you, I think is whoever has first established that does feel like a trope within horror.
For sure. And to your point, I think it's Vault of Horror 26 is another time Craig reuses this in Vault of Horror.
Is that the one when it's in the street with the car?
Yeah, it's the hands coming out of the cemetery. You got that old like 40s sedan pulling out. Yeah. I really enjoy that one. I just think it's one of those base level horror elements that you don't have to have much of an imagination to see that. You'd be like, that shouldn't be happening. I'm going to kind of take a step back, and get out of this hole. But no, I think this is a fun book. It's actually one of the few early vaults I don't have yet.
Well, that's the question. What is that guy's job to do at this point? Is it like smack the hands back down, or did he make a mistake and bury a person that's still alive?
I think the shovel becomes an edge weapon at that point.
Because like you've got Tales from the Crypt 28, which is like the one where it's like the underground shot where the guy's like buried alive, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, is this like an afterward, you know, well, actually that
there
was
you go.
one more than later, but it's like, you know, this is the guy trying to get out, but
this is the sequel to that one.
Yeah.
No, I think the lighting on this, just my last thought, and then I'll turn it over to Ryan. The lighting's interesting how, and, you know, big shout out to Marie Severin, just amazing work on coloring these EC stories, these EC covers. But the way she uses the yellow to highlight the hands and then the shock in the guy's face, that's clearly not how light works, but it just makes this cover pop. And I think it's great. So, Ryan, what do you say?
Yeah, no, I mean, like the first thing I was thinking of when I saw this was how that ties into the Tales from the Crypt 22 that you had right at the beginning. Just like another one where like someone's going to be grabbing you, pulling you back into the ground or whatever it might be. And yeah, I mean, it's like I've joked with people before. I'm like, yeah, put like a bell or like something in my coffin, you know. I don't want to wake up on the ground like this.
And there's historical precedent for that, right? They used to have a string and a bell on your gravestone or whatever.
But I mean, I don't know what would be worse, like if you didn't hear it or you did, like, you know, it's like either like.
I think worse would be being the guy who had to sit in the graveyard to listen for the bells.
Oh God, yeah,
like that would be a terrible job.
But yeah, no, I mean, like Mickey was saying, anything where you're getting a nice like mid grade, like a 5.5 is a very decent copy for this, under $1,000. I mean, I know like it's not cheap. Like there's a lot of buy with $1,000, but when you're talking about a lot of these books, like getting a nice looking copy in that type of price point is it's a big selling point.
Yeah, sure. only 61 on the census, and you know, maybe there is, like you said, there's a lot of Roths that, or people are not incentivized necessarily to slab this book, but at the same time, yeah, it just a lot of these, you know, early covers and stuff is just it's hard to get into that club. So when you start to compare those prices, and the mid grade is around $5.5, $900, you know, if you're a fan of Johnny Craig, like this, that seems like a reasonable price to pay.
100%. All right, great pick, Ryan. We've got your first underrated book. Tell us what you got here.
All right, so for this one, I've got Tomb of Terror number 16. This run is much better known for the book that goes one issue prior to that. But for me personally, I actually like this cover more because the one issue prior, it's one of those super violent covers, you know, and those ones, they don't really, like if I had a chance to get one, it's not like I'm going to turn it down, but they aren't the ones that appeal to me as much. And so this one, it's not, you know, PG. Still a pretty violent cover, but this is one of those that it has a lot of horror elements on it. That's what I was talking about. You've got the skull right down there in the front. You've got a zombie. You've got the kind of like drowning, choking element to it, because there are a number of covers like, which one is it? Astonishing 8 that has the drowning cover with the hands pushing them down, you know? And so it's like there are a number of these like cool elements. Then you've got it's a really interesting side view, you know, where you've got half underwater, half above water, where the woman's in the background, you know, probably yelling for boyfriend, husband, whatever it might be. And you know, it's just, I think there's a lot going with this. And like I said, you've got the black backgrounds. I love the black backgrounds in these. They just make these books really pop. The only thing that I don't like about this cover is the yellow strip on the bottom. You know, I kind of wish that wasn't there, but other than that, there's so much going for this one. This is definitely one that I keep an eye out for it, you know, whenever, and that's we talked about this. That's one of the struggles with making these videos. That it's like, now people are aware of these and for those books more, and it makes it all that much harder for you know, to find a copy. But this is one that is definitely on my list to look for, and I see them come up every once in a while, but not all that often. So the top graded copy is the high sale. There is a single 9.4 of this book. Again, sold November of 2021. I can almost guarantee, even though I didn't check, that it was part of the Black Cat collection because they were all in that month, and they all was all around then. Most recent sale was a 5.0 for $1,502, but there is a 4.5 on eBay right now at auction, and it is already at $1,735.
Oh wow!
4.5 has already surpassed the 5.0 from June of this year.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a few on eBay, or let's see, there are, I think there are 5. Is that what I just, sorry. Yeah. Okay. There are, I think there are 3 on eBay right now, and soon to be 2, because that one sells in a couple days. It will probably be gone and sold already by the time this video goes up. But so that number isn't going to actually be accurate anymore. But it shows that there is a lot of demand for this one. But when I talk about like all those elements, all the things that are going for this book, comparatively to like Tomb of Terror 15, this book is dirt cheap. I mean, 5-6 times less than that book. And so to me, that's a really big, it's an affordable, affordable book.
Right.
Even though it's many thousands of dollars. But again, here, top of census, 23,000. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe sometimes people worry, like when a top of census is a 9.4, that a 9.6 is going to pop up and just
out there.
Your day.
Yeah.
And so because that is definitely a thing when you're talking golden age. If you've got top of census that isn't a 9.8 or even maybe like 9.6, that there's something else out there sitting around just waiting to wreck the value of your book. So that's
single highest graded is just carries so much more weight than a shared highest graded, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, for sure. And so when those single highest graded, especially when they're in the 9s, I know there was somebody that was talking about that recently, where they had bought a book and they were like, oh, it was like a Wonder Woman. It was something Wonder Woman, and it was like a 7.5 or an 8.0, and it was the highest on census. And the person asked, they were like, well, why did you pay so much for that book? They're like, well, it's the highest on the census, and it's been out for 80 years. There's no way a higher grades going to come out. And like 3 months later, one, like, I think it was a Promise book, and it's like 9.6.
Yeah.
Ruining your day.
R.I.P. 8.0.
And I don't know if people are blowing smoke or whatever. I'm sure you have stories about this, not to derail, but there are a lot of dealers that like I always hear them talk about like, oh yeah, I know a guy, his collection, like literally everything is like 9.8. So there are those people out there that have those raw books that are.
Let's just say fishing stories aren't exclusive to tales about fish.
So Drew and Mickey, what are your thoughts on this one?
I agree with you. I think looking at this book, that yellow strip at the bottom is completely unnecessary. You don't have to try and sell a book like this. The cover art is going to do it for you. So I think that was definitely
I'm sure it wasn't Lee's choice to
I mean, and I'm sure when he drew it, there was probably art that's down there. So who knows what kind of awesome little nugget we might have missed out on because, this copy was over the top of it. But beyond that, I think this is a great example of a book that's it's not the top dog in the title like you were talking about, but it's, maybe number 2 on the depth chart, number 3 on the depth chart of just classic covers and issues that hide within some of these series that don't get, I mean, obviously that's why we're talking about it, right? They're underrated, they're underappreciated, because all the oxygen in the room gets sucked out by these bigger issues. And this is one that, has come across my scroll in the past, and I love it. The whole, just the depth of it with the cave entrance, the damsel in distress. There's so much going on. You can look at this book for a long time and not get bored because there's just that much to take in from it. I think it's a great cover, and I feel sorry for anybody who was wanting to get one of these on the DL, because I feel like it's starting to ascend a little.
Yeah, it's definitely an awesome cover, like you said. I mean, it checks a lot of the boxes. I definitely can see why you guys don't like the strip, but I do like the death is for sale and there are plenty of buyers. Like I feel like that's them trying to get a little bit of that EC humor, injected into this one. So if you can, mentally think it's funny, maybe you can get over the yellow strip at the bottom. But I think that this one is really cool, and it's like you said, it's like there's no reason necessarily why this book can't be one of the ones where everybody wants it. It's like it has all the elements. It's just sort of missing whatever it is, that like big sale. I guess, I mean, that is a big sale at the night before, but it's just sort of missing kind of the community just talking about it, like in a video like this, or hyping it, or saying like, posting on Instagram their flex pick of the book and making people a little bit more aware of it. And so you never really know with this thing. So yeah, it's an awesome book for sure.
I also tend to I've noticed I get drawn in by covers that have what makes it look like motion, and a lot of times it's with water. And so like with this one, you can it's like you can see or feel the waves or the kind of like the splashing around there.
Just the kinetic element to it.
There's some Frazetta covers that are similar that have like this, you just feel the motion to the cover. And so that's one of the things that also just really sells it to me for this.
Yeah. I'm sure you could take into an art class and talk about how like your eye gets, if you start in the lower left corner, you kind of perfectly wind around the way of the tunnel. So you your eye is drawn in a very nice kind of pleasing way. It's all the important elements.
And I think just to go off that, it's also a great contrast. You see how bright and nice and sunny it is outside, but deep in this cave, this is lurking. And I mean, I think to kind of reemphasize a point you were making, Mickey, this is one cultural reference away from just exploding, right?
Yeah.
Some zombie movie uses this shot, and the next thing you know, everybody in the world wants a copy of this book.
Yeah.
Something like that. But it's just a great book and great pick. Be sure to check out the rest of the conversation on Swagglehaus and Automatic Comics' videos. There are 6 more undervalued pre-code horror books to cover. So grab that bowl of Halloween candy, get comfortable on the couch, and let's keep the PCH talk going. Check out the description down below for links to the other undervalued pre-code horror comics videos. Collect responsibly, and I'll see you in the next one.